Welcome to Project Healthy Schools. This is Lesson 8, Assessing Advertising. Lesson objectives for Lesson 8 are: students will use critical thinking skills to evaluate food and beverage advertisements, understand how increased screen time and media usage plays a role in our food and beverage choices, and apply advertising techniques and strategies to create a health promotion advertisement. Vocabulary words for this lesson are advertisement, influence, and mindful eating.
Welcome back to Project Healthy Schools. Before we get going on Lesson 8, let's talk a little bit about what we talked about in Lesson 7. Lesson 7 was all about breakfast, and we talked about the benefits of eating breakfast. We also talked about barriers that stop us from eating breakfast. We talked about what makes up a really good breakfast or a healthy breakfast, and we also talked about how to make a healthy breakfast. So Lesson 8 is called Assessing Advertising. So we're going to talk a little bit about advertising and influence today. So those are two of our vocab words. What is an advertisement? Well, an advertisement is an announcement designed to attract people's attention and influence them to buy or support a product. I'm sure you can think of a lot of things that are advertisements, and we're going to talk a lot about that today. What about the word influence? What does that mean? That's also another one of our vocab words. Well, influence is the power to have an effect on the character, development, or behavior of someone or something. So we want you to think about what's something that influences you. Maybe think of a person who is a positive influence on you. It might be a parent, it might be a coach, it might be a teacher, it might be just someone that you know, but who's a positive influence? Who's someone that affects the way you think and affects the motives you have and the things that you want to be. So let's talk a little bit about advertising techniques. Where do we see advertisements? Well, they're everywhere. And maybe it takes a minute to think, but if you really go to look, advertisements for things and products are everywhere. They are in places like your phone, YouTube, even a bus, oftentimes has a billboard on it. We see them on TV, we see other online ads. If you follow social media, if you have social media accounts, there's constant advertisements. We see billboards going down the freeway when we're driving. We see magazines, and we see other things that are in print. So advertisements are everywhere. And today's lesson is going to be about how to look at those, how to assess those, how to interpret those. And we're not saying that they're bad, but we want to make sure that we understand the motives and the strategies that the people that are advertising are trying to promote to you. Advertisements are directly related to our screen time. If you think about kind of how we view our media these days, it's not just the television, it's our portable devices, our phones, our tablets, those kind of things. So a lot of the ads that we see are when we're looking at screens. Now we look at screens a lot. I mean, sometimes we're looking at them for educational purposes. You're looking at a screen right now viewing this lesson, and that's okay. And looking at screens, for some amount of time per day is also okay. But one thing we want to talk about is our entertainment screen time. The time that we're not using it for educational purposes, we're using it for other things. And that's one of the PHS goals, is to cut back on that entertainment screen time. Now, during that entertainment screen time, we're also going to be exposed to a lot of ads. So the question I want to ask you is, why would we want to limit that? Our goal is to try to get our entertainment screen time down to under 2 hours per day. And the reason we want to limit that, or one of the reasons, is to kind of avoid some of these advertisements in some ways, because the advertisement techniques that some companies use aren't always beneficial, and they're not always a healthy thing for young people. Also, when we're not using screens, we are most likely more active. It's really hard to be active and get that 60 minutes a day of physical activity when we're on a screen. So what we really want to focus on today is advertisement and how it influences your food choice. So once again, screen time and your food choices. The time that you're on a screen, the more influences you are going to have about the foods that you eat. Now, most of the time, the advertisers, the people who pay a lot of money to put out ads, are for foods that aren't very healthy. I'm sure you can think of a lot of slogans and catchy jingles and things like that that have to do with food. Like take a look at a couple of these examples. You look at Do the Do. Well, Do the Do is an example for is an ad for Mountain Dew, and we know that that is not a healthy food choice at all. You know, then you also think about things like Lucky Charms, which is a cereal which in some ways has a few beneficial factors, but it is far outweighed by the added sugar and the other things involved. But can you give me an example of, you know, what makes an ad memorable? Like what kind of things really make something stick out and help you remember something? Like you can probably think of the advertisements for Lucky Charms and Mountain Dew without me even showing them to you. What are some other things, or what are some other brands that really stick out to you? So we're going to walk through a couple of really distinctive slogans and designs and advertisements that I think you're going to recognize. So the first one, what do you think this represents? Well, I'm guessing you probably realize that that is Gatorade. And Gatorade is very, very common. It's very advertised, and it's advertised as a healthy sports drink. It's something that goes along with physical activity. But unfortunately, what Gatorade is not telling you is how much added sugar they have added to their drinks. And even though it's associated with oftentimes celebrities and athletes, and it appears to be really healthy, it's not always the best choice when we're thirsty and when we're being really physically active because of the added sugar. What we're really going to focus on is how Gatorade advertises. What do they do to make their brand so recognizable? Well, like I said, they use celebrities and athletes. The color and design is very distinctive. Their slogan, they also have a lot of health claims. I think the biggest thing is that logo recognition. As you probably all saw that and knew exactly what it meant. But they also use different kinds of media, online magazines, commercials, and other products. Let's take a look at another one. What's this one tell you? Well, as you probably know, that is Chester Cheetah, and that is for Cheetos. And it's amazing how we recognize things like that. Now, hopefully I don't have to tell you, Cheetos are not a healthy food. Cheetos are full of things that are not good for our body. But once again, we easily recognize that, and we know exactly what that is just from that one character. And they're using the characters, they're using the bright colors and designs. There's that brand recognition that goes along with it. Cheeto commercials are oftentimes really playful and fun, and that's usually most of these products want to promote fun and an exciting atmosphere to kind of get people to want to buy their products and use their products. So companies often will use recognizable people to advertise their products. Now, why do you think that is? Well, recognizable people or celebrities or athletes are oftentimes people that people admire. And so when you see them endorsing these products, it naturally makes you want to use them. So it promotes the product just simply by having a recognizable face attached to it. And then they're also seen as experts. You know, if an athlete is promoting Gatorade, well, we know that that person is a great athlete and they're an expert on the subject, so the Gatorade must be really good for us. That's not always the case. Keep in mind that people are getting paid a lot of money to do those kind of things. People want to perform like those people, so they think maybe, you know, if I drink Gatorade, I'm going to be a great athlete too. Even though that's not very logical, that's kind of the natural thought process that occurs when people are advertising. And a lot of advertising has to do with kind of subliminal thinking, things that we don't necessarily think about. They just kind of hit us, and it just naturally affects us, and it makes us want to buy that product. So one of the biggest ones and one of the most recognizable brands is simply, I can simply probably put it in your head by saying one phrase. What do you think of when I say, I'm loving it? Well, you probably automatically think of McDonald's. And McDonald's is one of the biggest franchises and does a lot of advertising. But as you know, their food is not the most healthy. But what does McDonald's do to maximize their advertising potential? Well, they use things like brand recognition, as we mentioned. You simply hear that jingle and you know exactly what I'm talking about. You see a simple golden arch and you know exactly what it represents. They also have catchy songs. Their colors are very appealing. They use characters like Ronald McDonald as well. And then they have those signature food items like Happy Meals from even when we were kids. They get us started when we were kids wanting to have Happy Meals and the toy that comes with it. And that's all a strategy to get people to kind of be lifelong customers at McDonald's. Do you think advertisements always tell the truth? Well, they kind of seem to, but I think it's important that you analyze them kind of in a more critical nature. Look at this, for example, and I think this is a big one. McDonald's, for example, advertises these great burgers that look amazing. And in the advertisements, they look big and huge and plump, and they actually look kind of healthy. But when you get them in person, they don't look so good, do they? But think about it. If you've ever ordered a meal at a restaurant that didn't quite look as good as the advertisement. Food advertisements naturally make us think that they taste really good, but they also try to do a pretty good job of making us think they're healthy, because a lot of people like you are educated and understand that health is important. So a lot of the advertising that goes on with foods is to try to promote them as healthy. But you have to really watch that and keep in mind that they're not always being honest. All right, how many cereals advertise themselves as whole grain, yet they don't mention the ton of added sugar? Thinking back to our sugar shock lesson, remember how much sugar was in Lucky Charms. You know, then we also hear a lot about 100% juice included in a product, but that might mean that there's only 5% is 100% juice. The rest is added sugar and other things that aren't necessarily good for us. So it is really important to have a critical eye when you're looking at food advertisements. Okay, as always, this is a good time to take a break. We want to get up and get the heart beating a little bit. Let's take a little bit of a brain break and go get some physical activity. Okay, it's a beautiful day, so I'm outside to do my brain break, but if you can't, and if your weather's not so good, or if you don't have a space outside, don't worry. All you need for this brain break is a line. Now, I have a piece of chalk. I'm going to draw a line here on the ground. Now, you don't even need to draw a line. If you're in the house, go ahead and, if you can find a crack in a tile, like even there's a crack in the concrete here, all you need is a line of some kind. It could be imaginary, whatever. You could put a piece of yarn down in the house. It's amazing what you can do with just a line. All right, so we're going to do some jumps today. We're going to do 100 total jumps. We're going to kind of mix up the way we do them. The first kind of jump we're going to do is a ski jump. All right, think about if you were skiing, you're going to jump 2 feet to 2 feet sideways over the line. Okay, so each time I jump over the line, we're going to count one jump. All right, we're going to do 25 of those. All right, the other kind of jump, we're just going to do a front and back jump. We're going to face the line, and we're going to stamp on our toes and jump forward and back. Every time those 2 feet hit the ground, I'm going to count that as one. Okay, so we're going to do 25 of those, so that's 50 total. The next one we're going to do is 1 foot in front, 1 foot behind, and I'm just going to switch. Every time I switch, I'm going to count that as one, but I'm going to not touch the line. So I'm just going to jump like this for 25 jumps. And then to finish up, we're going to do crisscross, which is fun. I'm going to cross my feet across and bring them back, and then I'm going to switch. I'm going to put my right foot in front of my left and back. Now left foot in front of my right and back. And I'm going to do 100 total jumps, 25 of each, as fast as I can. Are we ready? Here we go. Ski jumps first. All right, welcome back. Hopefully you are refreshed and ready to go after that quick little brain break. What I want to talk to you about next is mindful eating. Now think about what that means. We often just kind of eat without thinking. We know we need to eat, and oftentimes we eat without thinking. A lot of times we eat when we're bored. We eat kind of like when we associate that with some sort of activity, like when we sit down and watch TV, we always want to eat and things like that. But mindful eating is actually thinking about the process of eating. So it's not only thinking about what's in the food and what we're actually eating and if it's healthy, but also understanding why we're eating and eating when we feel the signals from our body to eat. Our body naturally will tell us when we're hungry. Think about how many times when you just kind of eat even though you're not hungry. And it's important to get to that point where you're listening to your body and you're letting your body guide you. If you're not hungry, there's no need to eat. If you're hungry, then you go ahead and eat. And when you do eat, you think about what you're actually eating. Think about the content of the food, what it's going to do when it goes into your body, and how it's going to help you. If you can figure that out and you can start to do that, I bet you'll notice a big difference in the quality of the food that you eat and how healthy that you eat. So for our activity today, it's really fun. You get to create your own advertisement. So thinking about all the strategies that companies use to promote their products, you're going to do that, but you're going to actually promote something healthy, which is pretty rare. You don't see a lot of advertisements for healthy foods. So you're going to use the strategies that we talked about today, and you're going to create your own, and you have choices here. You have a few choices on how you're going to do it. You can create a food rap song or a jingle for a radio advertisement. Imagine that you're on radio and people can't see you, and you just have to come up with something that's catchy or some sort of a song that gets people to kind of think of your product. Think about McDonald's and I'm loving it and that jingle that goes along with that. You can also create a drawing for a magazine or a billboard ad. So imagine if your advertisement is visual and it needs to be something that people see. It might be up on a big billboard on the expressway. It might be in an app. It might be in a magazine. But how would you design an ad that promoted a healthy food item or something healthy to get people's attention? Or you could do a skit for a commercial. And I'm going to give you an example of that, as I created one using iMovie with the trailer option. And I'm going to show you an example in just a minute of a fun way to promote something really healthy. But before you get going, let me just remind you of some things to kind of keep in mind when you're designing your advertisement. First of all, let's kind of go back to the 5 PHS goals that we talked about in lesson 1. PHS goals are to eat more fruits and vegetables. So maybe that's something that you want to come up with in your ad. Choosing less sugary food or foods that have less added fat. And being active every day. You can make an advertisement for being active and making sure that you get that 60 minutes a day of physical activity. Or what about spending less time in front of a screen, which is something that we talked a lot about today. So think about something that you're going to promote and go ahead and pause the video and take some time. But before you do that, take a look at my fun ad that I created using the iMovie trailer option. How did your advertisement go? Well, what I want to do is I want to challenge you to share that with someone. Maybe you can share your video that you made with a teacher. Maybe you can send a picture of your print ad that you made, or maybe record your video of your jingle or your song or whatever you did and share that with your teacher or share that with somebody and show them that you're trying to promote something healthy in the same ways that other companies use to promote things that maybe aren't so healthy. So to close up this lesson, let's talk about what we talked about today. Let's go over a few things. Who can remember the max amount of entertainment screen time that we should have each day? Well, this is one of the PHS goals, so this is important. We want to try to keep under 2 hours a day of screen time that's not educationally related or stuff that we don't have to actually do for school or things like that. So we want to try to keep that under 2 hours. Now, screen time is one of the PHS goals. And can you think of another lesson that we talked about screen time? Well, when we talked about our heart and the get the beat lesson, we talked about physical activity and how important that is. And limiting screen time is directly related to how much physical activity we can get every day. What about screen time and our food choices? Well, today we talked a lot about advertising and how many things that pop up into our face when we are on screens. And the more we're on screens, the more we're going to get these influences and these ads from oftentimes sources that are not healthy options. So by limiting your screen time, you're also going to limit the influence that you have to make bad food choices. And lastly, as we always talk about, what can you share from this lesson? What's something that you learned either through what we talked about or through the activity that you did, creating your own advertisement, that you could maybe share with a friend or a family member to help them understand what we talked about today. Thank you for being with me today. I had a lot of fun. I will see you in lesson 9.